In this video, I'm going to give you my basketball fitness training system. It's going to include 6 sections. That includes the training workouts, so that's like speed, jump, and lift training. That's going to include your conditioning, which is in the form of skills. That's going to include your mobility. That's going to include your nutrition. That's going to include number 5, which is what's number 5? Number 5 is the mental strengthening, and then number 6 is your recovery. So I'm going to go over that. The system that I use, and I've been using with, I've been a basketball performance coach for the last 11 years. I've refined this over those years. I've been both a college basketball coach on the actual team side. I've also been a director of strength and conditioning where I've worked with hundreds of athletes per year. Um, I and then for myself, I'm a 32-year-old former player who I love to still play the game and still be in good shape. So that is also like how I've come to create this system. So it's going to include those 6 areas. All right, so let's get into it. So on the actual workout training side, you've got what I call like SJL, speed, jump, and lift. And you're doing that in one workout. These workouts, for myself, and really when I've worked with other people too, like workouts generally are going to be 60 minutes, but really like I try to keep the workouts to about 50 minutes. So a speed jump lift workout is going to consist of a warm up, maybe about 8 minutes on the warm up. Then we're going to get into some plyometrics for like 5 minutes. After the plyometrics, we're going to get into some speed work, which is going to include some type of like mechanics drill or breakdown for speed, as well as pairing that with the actual like sprinting, whether that's multi-directional, which is like change of direction stuff, agility. That includes like acceleration, deceleration, and the change of direction, as well as just linear speed. That's things like just purely acceleration or purely top speed, like running as absolutely fast as you can. So for those speed segments in each workout, it's going to be about 7 to 10 minutes, give or take. Then after that, we're going to get into the jump side of it. Now for jump, really what that is, the way I categorize it, is that's power. So for the jump or the power segment, that's going to be about 5 to 8 minutes. And that is going to include a jumping exercise, like a single effort jumping exercise, whether that's jumping off of 2 or jumping off of 1, jumping onto a box or jumping with weight, something like that, as well as a medicine ball throw. Now, I'll say if you train with me 3 days a week, or if you follow any of my training programs that are 3 days a week, you'll notice that 2 of those days are the jumps and the throws. But that third day is often going to be a Olympic lift, like an Olympic variation. That could be something like a power hang clean or a snatch or a push press or something like that, some type of variation that has to do with like Olympic power. Then after that, we're going to get into the actual like raw strength work. That's going to be like your traditional foundational movement pattern. So I like to pair them together in supersets, and each one is going to be about 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but it's usually going to be 2 exercises paired back to back, and then we do 4 of those total. So the first 2 pair, the superset, is going to be a knee dominant exercise. That could be something like a squat or a split squat or a lunge or something like that. And then pairing that with an upper body pulling exercise, whether that is something like rows or pull-ups or lat pull down or something like that. Then we're going to pair, the next superset is going to be an upper body pushing exercise and a lower body hinging or hip dominant exercise. So for the upper body push, that could be something like a bench press, a shoulder press, a push-up, something like that. And then the lower body hinging is going to be something like a Romanian deadlift or a hip thrust variation. Those are usually the main ones that I use, and then variations within that of RDLs and hip thrusts. So that's going to be on the hinging side. And again, those 4 exercises, I pair them in 2s. They take about 10-ish minutes each. And then at the end, maybe we're doing some accessory work. The accessories could be something like, I like accessories to be frontal plane or like lateral movement, or rotational. But that can also be stuff that is, it could be like arm farm if you want that. That can also be I learned this term local tissue prep from Hunter Eisenhower at Arizona State, and I really like the concept. It's basically accessories specifically for areas that are injury prone. So like, for example, ankles are an injury prone area in basketball players. So it could be doing something like some calf raises or some tib raises or something like that. And other areas of local tissue prep would be things like for the ankles or the knees, the hips, the spine, the shoulders, basically areas that are commonly injured for basketball players. So we're going to spend some time on that, maybe about 5 to 6 minutes, and then finish with some core work. And the core work usually be like 2 exercises. Maybe it's like an anti-lateral flexion and then a lateral flexion exercise. That's how I like to pair that. And then maybe that's 5 minutes. Sometimes I put the accessories on a separate third day, but if you only are training with me 2 days a week, I usually put that towards the end of the workout, like I just said, with the local tissue prep. That's the structure for the speed jump lift, like performance training sessions. Category number 2 is the conditioning. So to me, your conditioning really should be your skill sessions. Like you can include in that, distance sprints or something like that. Or really the furthest I'll go when it comes to conditioning is like a mile run. But to me, the best thing is to do something that's really specific to the sport. And that's going to be like your skill work. That's also like a time efficiency thing. Like, for me, I'm like I said, I'm 32 years old. I got a full-time job. I coach high school basketball in the evenings. Like, I don't, I got my girl, I got myself, like I got other stuff going on in my life. I'm not going to allocate so much time to my training really outside of maybe like an hour a day. So I want my training to be really efficient and effective. And that's why for me, the skill work just doubles as the conditioning work. And it's the most specific type of conditioning because it goes with the actual sport itself of basketball. So for skill work, that can be one-on-0. That's like by yourself. For me, I don't really have a training partner right now. So I'll just go down to a park and I'll work on my skills by myself. But that could also be if you work with a training partner, that could be playing one-on-one, or if you got a couple people like 2-on-1 or 1-on-2, or maybe it's just going to play some games with people, 3-on-3 or 5-on-5 or something like that. But that is the conditioning work in my opinion. And you can definitely do stuff like repeat sprint ability, RSA targeting, and that could be things like doing a 440 is what we used to do in high school, down and back 4 times in 40 seconds, take a short break, and then you're going right back into it. Or maybe it's a 110 going down and back 1 time in 10 seconds. You got, a 10 or 15-second break. That also translates really well to the sport. But things that are like LSD, long, slow duration, that doesn't translate as well to basketball. It gives you a cardiovascular base, I suppose, but I also think there's more efficient and effective ways to go about it. But nonetheless, category number 2 is, like I just said, skills plus skills are your conditioning work. Category number 3 in my basketball fitness training system is mobility. So there's 3 areas I really include mobility, or I guess 4. There is area number 1 in the warm-up. So like that 8-minute dynamic warm-up I talked about in the speed jump lift sessions, that's a time for mobility for those areas that are, that you need to get warmed up, but also tend to maybe be a little bit more injury prone. That's things like your ankles, your hips, your knees, your spine, your back, your shoulders, etc. Area number 2, I like to put that in. And I'm just going to clump these all together, either in the morning as like a morning routine, in the evening before you go to bed, or even in the afternoon when you come home from work or school or whatever the case is. But just addressing your mobility with a really basic routine, something that's like 5 or 10 minutes. I've got a couple of different routines I've put together over the years, movement snacks or movement vitamins. As well as Hooper yoga is what I've come to call it. So like those are short, quick routines that are about 10, anywhere from like 8 to 15 minutes, depending on how many reps you're doing, that I like to do for mobility, but that's umbrella number 3 in my system. Number 4 is nutrient dense. So eating a nutrient dense diet. Um, the nutrients, like food is fuel. That's my philosophy with it. And of course I love excellent tasting food. Like I love that as much as the next person. My girl and I are big foodies, but at the end of the day, food is fuel to me. So I'm looking at everything from a nutrient density perspective, and nutrient density is basically like the macro and the micronutrients relative to how many calories you're getting. So something like a bag of chips that's like 200 calories but has no nutrition, that is not a nutrient dense. It's a nutrient poor food, versus something like an apple that's like 60 calories and it's got a ton of micronutrients and this and that. That's a very nutrient dense food. So the formula I use for nutrient dense eating, there's a couple, but I think the easiest one that I'll talk about right here, and I can go in maybe other detail in a different video, is the My Plate template. So that's like the one that the US government pushes. And honestly, it is a really good template, especially because it's like a nice visual. So like imagine you got a plate, half of it, divide it in half. On that one half, you're going to have about basically a quarter is fruit and a quarter is vegetables. And try to have a variety of colors and whatnot and a variety of different fruits and vegetables. But that's like half your plate right there alone is fruits and vegetables. On the other side, you're going to have, about a quarter or so is lean protein source. And then on top of that, it can be, other things I like to do, whether that's a whole grain or it could be a legume like beans or something like that. I love beans. I think you should have them once a day because of the fiber within them. But it could also be something like a dairy source if you want that, or nuts or something like that. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail right now, but on the nutrient side, it's about eating, or on the diet side, nutrition, it's about eating a nutrient dense diet. And it comes down to just making sure you're either meeting your calorie goals for either maintenance or gaining weight or losing weight, getting roughly your body weight in protein, or at least 0.7 grams per pound of protein, up to like 1 or more grams per pound of protein. So if you weigh 100 pounds, 0.7 would be 70 grams of protein per day, or if you match that to 1 gram per pound of protein per day, that would be 100 grams per day, using just like a very simple equation. And then getting lots of water. So that's, at the end of the day, nutrient dense. For the nutrition, it's just eating a nutrient dense diet. Category number 5 is mental strengthening. So, the game and really just life is like a game, right? And it's so influenced by your mental. And I've learned that over the years. I went through depression for a long time, had really negative self-talk. I slipped back into that state a couple of months ago, and it's really revitalized for me how important the mental strengthening side of life is for you, and how that translates into something like basketball. I'm going to give you 3 like broad categories, I guess, within this. So area number 1, or layers to this. So area number 1, meditation. Meditation, I think, is such an important foundation building block on the mental side, because it helps you become present. It helps bring your awareness to this present moment, to where your body is, helps you separate yourself from your thoughts. So that way you can realize you are not necessarily your thoughts. Um, you can take more conscious control of your thoughts, and meditation allows you, it gives you the skills to do that, to become really present and aware and mindful with where your attention is going. Layer number 2 within the mental strengthening side is positivity. So filling your mind with positive, intentional, beneficial thoughts. Included with that is like your mental diet, or your consumption diet, and that's like with what you read, listen to, and watch on social media, or on podcasts, or YouTube, or whatever the case is. But it's just filling you up with good thoughts. And I think it's a good idea to be intentional about those thoughts, to have a mantra of a couple sentences that you repeat to yourself and you can always fall back on, that become your foundational beliefs. Um, Next up, and this is the 3rd layer when it comes to the mental strengthening, is mental challenges. So these can be really large challenges. Like, honestly, life will give you really large mental challenges, but you can also give yourself exercises to like strengthen that on a micro level. So we can call these micro challenges. And that could be something as simple as like, dang, I'm feeling thirsty right now, but I'm going to challenge myself and wait another 2 minutes before I drink this glass of water. Or maybe it's something like you get this impulse, this dopamine impulse to like, let me check my phone so that way I can get this quick little dopamine hit. And maybe you just delay 10 minutes before you check your phone, or something like that. It's just these little micro challenges. Honestly, your workouts should also have micro challenges embedded in them if they're following progressive overload, which they should be. That's what good training does. It gets progressively more challenging. And you should be getting micro challenges through your workouts, but you can also do those little things throughout the day, such as the water example I gave. Category number 6 this is the final one in my basketball fitness training system, is recovery. So recovery, when you train, you're really breaking your body down. You're breaking down the muscle fibers and this and that. And then it's during recovery that your body is now building itself back up to be better than it was before. So recovery is critical when it comes to training. And the main areas of recovery are going to be things like sleep, your nutrition, your water consumption, but also your mood. And part of that is related with mental strengthening, but also, in addition to that, doing things that put you in a positive state. And that's things like laughing, spending time with family and friends that make you happy. That is doing things like going out in nature, being around trees, seeing green. Those all can help with your mood, which assists with recovery. Instead of flooding your body with these stress hormones like cortisol and whatnot, you instead give yourself more positive hormones like serotonin or dopamine, or I'm blanking on some of the other ones, but it's those things that assist with your recovery. And that in a nutshell is the main things you want to hit on when it comes to your basketball fitness training. And that's the system I've created over these years. It comes down to your actual performance workouts, so speed, jump, lift, your conditioning, which is in the form of skills or live play, mobility, which you should be doing at the very least during your warm-ups, but honestly, like, do it also one more time during the day, whether that's morning, afternoon, or night. Area number 4 is your nutrition, eating a nutrient dense diet. Number 5, your mental strengthening. And then number 6 is your recovery. And if you hit those areas, you're going to be putting your body your body and your mind in a really good position to be successful on the basketball floor, whatever that means for you. Whether you are a competitive player who's still trying to make a roster somewhere or be an all league player or something like that, or if you're like me and you're just a dude who loves to play basketball and you play recreationally and it's just something that you love to do for fun, but you also want to be competitive while doing it and you want to look good, because training for basketball helps your body look good as well. So that right there is my system in a nutshell. If you got questions or comments or concerns, just drop a comment or shoot me a DM on Instagram. But if you like this video, please like this, please subscribe. I'm going to be making more videos like this. As you can see, the last couple of months, I've been making more videos and I'm trying to do this almost daily, or at least like Monday through Friday. So continue to tune back in. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. All right. I love y'all. Agape love. Peace.